Back here on HQ Spotlight, now that the whole Aaron Rodgers situation is settled, the offseason's been pretty quiet for first-year head coach Aaron Glenn, and honestly, that's exactly the way he wants it. He's trying to take this team back to that championship culture in East Rutherford. It's no surprise to find out that his mentality for the New Look Jets is, quote, move in silence. As a result, you've seen attendance be nearly perfect at the offseason activities. The perspective has changed about how we're talking about the Jets as well. However, they still play in a division with the Buffalo Bills. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves here when we talk about our New Look Jets, but we will do so with our former Jets.
Excuse me?
What do you mean, excuse me?
Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves because the Bills are in this division.
Be for real.
How you feel?
The Jets are not better than the Buffalo Bills. I will not tolerate the slander to start the conversation. Tyler Sullivan is agreeing with me. We've got him here as well. I'm throwing my pins around. But what we can talk about, Lige, while we're on the subject, there's only one person in this segment who's been in the rooms on the team with the New York Jets, and it's you. When you look at the way Aaron Glenn has sort of established himself as the head coach, right? I know a lot of people felt how they felt about the Aaron Rodgers meeting and how it probably could have been an email. But other than that, he's kind of run a tight ship. What have you thought about Aaron Glenn to this point as the head coach?
Haley, it's been refreshing to see how the New Look Jets and Aaron Glenn have shown themselves this offseason. You talked about what he said. He wants to move in silence. And for the longest time, that's been the opposite of what the Jets have been. We've heard so many leaks come out of there, so much noise coming out of there, but we haven't heard anything about the Jets this offseason. Matter of fact, they have two prominent players that are due for contract extensions, and Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. Both of those guys showed up in the offseason where we've seen so many other players hold out because they want their bags that they deservingly need to get. But that shows you the culture that Aaron Glenn is coming with. And that's why I thought this was a home run hire, because he's been in that building. People always talk about Revis Island. I was teammates with Darrelle Revis. But before Darrelle Revis, the corner that everybody looked up to when it comes to the New York Jets was Aaron Glenn. Matter of fact, he has a big picture as soon as you walk in on the business side. So I loved how he's been able to move in silence, no nonsense attitude, but I love that there's been a culture shift. Things aren't leaking out of that Jets locker room.
He specifically told USA Today that it was, quote, fate that he ended up with this job. It's his third time in the conversation, whether it's a player, whether it's an assistant coach. So, Tyler, that sort of leads me to 2025, right? Because it's refreshing to hear that the culture has changed in one offseason. However, the reality is they've got to make results happen in terms of wins and losses. So if you are Aaron Glenn in this situation, what does the pressure feel like knowing that you're stepping into a playoff drought that is the longest across all major sports here in the USA?
Yeah, I'm sure the Jets fans are sick and tired of hearing the longest playoff drought in the NFL, but I do think it's going to be a little bit longer. I think this is going to take a little bit of a rebuild, but I do like the foundation that Aaron Glenn is coming into. Again, you guys talked about it, defensive-minded head coach, former defensive player, and now he joins a team that has a really good defense. You're talking about a defense that ranked second in the NFL last season in yards per play allowed. The only team they were looking up against was the Philadelphia Eagles, who won a Super Bowl. And you saw what Aaron Glenn was able to do in Detroit as the defensive coordinator. The turnovers every single year went up. The points per game all went down. So if he can do something like that to the New York Jets defense that is already budding to be one of the best in the NFL, you are going to take the pressure, you talk about pressure, the pressure off of a guy like Justin Fields in that offense to try to go toe-to-toe every single week with a lot of these elite teams that you're talking about, like Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. If they're able to limit him, you're not asking Justin Fields to go throw for throw with the former NFL MVP. Same thing with Drake May and Tua Tagovailoa in that same division. So there's pressure, of course, because you're in New York, you're under that microscope, but he is set up pretty nicely, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, the defense certainly is shaping up quite nice. We'll talk a little bit about additions and subtractions in a minute, but obviously the biggest addition and subtraction we saw was Justin Fields at quarterback. And I know that there are a lot of questions about how well he's going to play. Tyler, you just laid it out there nicely. How long, I'm wondering, is the leash for Justin Fields? Because when you look at the depth chart here, you've got Tyrod Taylor, who continues to be the backup there. And then you've got two undrafted free agents in Brady Cook and Adrian Martinez here. How long are you giving Justin Fields before we decide, like, hey, we got to go in a different direction? I'd give him the full season. Absolutely. I don't think that you really do yourself any good if you throw in Tyrod Taylor at some, call it, right after the bye in week 9 and you say, okay, we're going to go the rest of the season with Tyrod Taylor. He's not your long-term option. There's a chance that Justin Fields is. And I really like the signing of him by the New York Jets because it's really not a lot of risk. You're talking about 2 years, $40 million. That $20 million in AAV ranks him the 20th highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And this is a guy that's still young in his career. Could he possibly be the next Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, where it took him a little bit. It took him a while to kind of get his footing in the NFL, but you land in the right situation, possibly the New York Jets, and you really tap into that potential that made you a first-round pick not that long ago. Again, this is still a young player in my eyes, and if he finds his home, and it could be with the New York Jets, that's only going to help him and help the New York Jets get a quarterback on the cheap.
And you two are both on the same page here when it comes to Justin Fields being the best offseason acquisition that the Jets could pick up. Lige, you're also looking at the OC there in Tanner Engstrand. Did I say that correctly?
Yep.
Tanner Engstrand.
Yep.
Why those two being the different makers for you?
I think the combination of the two will determine the success of offense. Obviously, the quarterback and the offensive coordinator. And we look at it, Justin Fields, you just saw the graphic up there. His first couple years, 2.8% turnover-worthy plays, right? When he got to Pittsburgh last year, he took that all the way down to 0.8. Now, the biggest thing with Justin Fields was consistency in the throwing game because when you look at it, when he was the starter for those first 6 games for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Steelers only averaged around 20 points a game. Their defense was able to keep them in games. He missed on some big-time throws, and that's why Mike Tomlin ultimately went to Russell Wilson to open up the passing game. So this is a big opportunity for Justin Fields because he's only 26 years old, Haley. He still has an opportunity to be the franchise quarterback for the New York Jets. And I put Tanner Engstrand in there because he was a passing game coordinator with the Detroit Lions, but he has never called plays in the NFL. He called them in college at San Diego. He called them in the XFL with the DC Defenders. But this will be his first opportunity calling plays by himself, not under the tutelage of Ben Johnson. So that marriage is going to be very vitally important to the New York Jets to have some success. And I talked about Tanner Engstrand and the pass game coordinator from Detroit. What I want to know is how is he going to be inventive in the run game, because that is what's really plagued this Jets offense the last couple years.
Yeah, they just haven't gotten that production out of the backfield that we've expected, especially with Breece Hall being banged up and all that. So we'll keep our eye on the offense. It's not all sweet, though, Tyler, on the offensive side of the ball. When we talk about the biggest losses this offseason, you're actually looking at Devontae Smith being a big offseason loss there, or Devontae Adams, excuse me. Devontae Adams being the biggest loss out in the Jets organization there. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, and they released him too, so it's not like he left in free agency again. When they were moving off of Aaron Rodgers, you kind of knew that Devontae Adams wasn't going to be there that long. But I look at this depth chart, and I really don't see anything that I like outside of Garrett Wilson. Of course, still one of the best young wide receivers in the NFL, but you're now asking a lot of him because you're talking about Josh Reynolds, Alan Lazard, Malachi Corley, who might not even be on the roster come week 1. And so the question for me will be, okay, when Justin Fields looks at Garrett Wilson and he's bottled up, I don't know if there's another guy that can get open, and does that force him to go into a bad habit of making one read and then running the football? And so that's going to be my question here. Which wide receiver steps up in the absence of Devontae Adams, who was sensational down the stretch for them?
All right, so we need someone to step up. Garrett Wilson, we're talking to you, my guy. By the way, DJ Reed is your biggest offseason loss when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, but we talked about it. Defense looks pretty good. If we get into the schedule, I mentioned it earlier, that playoff drought, unfortunately for Jets fans and Gang Green, that's going to keep hovering until they can finally get to the postseason. Tyler, you have them improving from last year's finish, though. I believe they went 5-12. You have them going 7-10. Lige, still an improvement, but you see them going 9-8.
Yeah, I'm going to say this is going to be a surprise team. You see the graphic right there. I think the tell of the story, Haley, is weeks 14 through 18. And I say that because you have the Dolphins, Jaguars, Saints, Patriots. Essentially, all of those teams are kind of in a rebuild. Yeah. Right? So the Jets can go on a run right there. And then week 18, you talked about it. You threw a shot at my Jets in the beginning saying the Bills are by far the best team, which is true in this division. I'll be honest, it's true in this division. they could be resting all their starters in Week 18. So you got to think
Fair.
the Jets could go on a real run weeks 14 through 18 and make a run at potentially a wild card at 9 and 8. Aaron Glenn talked about the culture, and for him, that starts with the players. He's trying to change the culture there. They have a real opportunity to change things around in New York. I have them going 9 and 8 this year.
I'm not going to lie, Lige. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Jets finish third in the division, maybe even second, depending on what's going on with the Dolphins. So I'm not throwing shade necessarily. But Tyler will agree with me. It's the Bills and everybody else. Like, I feel like I'm not crazy to say that.
You're not.
All right. It's still gangrene.
Yeah, for sure. All
right.
day long.
Lige, get out of here. You got a busy day. Let's talk about how Sportsline feels when it comes to the wins and losses of the New York Jets. They've got them going just over 7 wins. So the former Jet himself giving them a little bit extra juice. He has them going 9 and 8. They have a 20.8% shot of making the postseason, though. The question is Aaron Glenn and Justin Fields the duo to get them there finally?